Sam Altman is calling a code red for ChatGPT. The OpenAI exec wants employees to focus on the chatbot and speed up its evolution. Let's talk about that with Doug Clinton, founder and CEO, Intelligent Alpha. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Marla. Good to be with you.
What are the shortcomings of ChatGPT when stacked up against the others?
I don't know that it's so much about shortcomings as it is that we have these very small and albeit brief leads with new model releases that these companies are pushing at faster and faster paces. And so we had Google put Gemini 3 out just a month ago. After that, Anthropic came out with their newest model just recently, Opus 4.5. And if you look at these benchmarks, which basically are sort of like tests that we use, technical tests we use to stack rank the models. Every time a new model comes out, benchmark numbers go up. And so ChatGPT is now third in the race, if you look at the benchmarks. They're working on a new model called Garlic. That's the code name internally, and it'll probably launch in the next several weeks, maybe early next year. I think that will probably put them back at the top of those ranks. But the code red is really to get them, I think, to figure out what can we do to break out and try to get our distribution edge above Google, because I think that's where they're going to really have a lot of challenges.
Yeah, they're at about 800 million users, something like that. But part of the problem, and tell me how much of a problem it is they don't make any money. So why haven't they, for example, introduced ads?
The thing about emerging technologies, I think it's really important for everybody to understand, is that we get bubbles because it actually serves a purpose to sort of discount the technology or subsidize the technology for users. So we get those 800 million weekly active users on a ChatGPT. So to your point, they're not making money on the bottom line. They're generating about 20 billion or so on top line run rate revenue. So they are getting a lot of top line revenue. But I would say that they've had a lot of this investment to just make sure that consumers can access this technology, whether it's for free or through a cheap paid subscription right now. And so I think that over time, what we'll see is those prices, those subscription prices, will ultimately go up, because I think OpenAI and Google, as a byproduct, they do have a lot of pricing power. Once you get sort of addicted to using these tools, you really can't get away from them. So I think they will be profitable in the long run.
All right. So why do you think we're seeing the kind of volatility in the AI stocks we've seen in the last few months?
I think a lot of it has a simple explanation, which is the trade was just getting sort of tired. And that's the reality of many of these bull runs. If you look back at the dot-com era, it lasted about 7 years. Over that time period, there were 10% pullbacks on the NASDAQ. And so we actually didn't even get the 10% pullback in this most recent volatility bout. We've only had 2 periods of 10% pullbacks since the AI bull market started at the end of 2022. So I think what we were seeing was really just sort of a normal course of action where the trade gets heated, the market sort of needs to digest, some of the heat comes off the trade. And my sense is we might have maybe another couple of weeks of digestion, but I do suspect that next year the AI trade will continue to work.
Okay, and you believe we have 2 to 4 years left, bigger picture in AI, so what comes next?
I think there's 2 big themes going into next year, Morella. One is going to be distribution. So when we talk about what's kind of the next leg of the OpenAI versus Google race, it will be about distribution. Who can get these products out front, in front of customers, embedded in their everyday lives? I do think Google has an advantage there. It's a stock that we own at Intelligent Alpha in our long short fund, where we use AI to actually pick all of our stocks. And so I think Google does have that distribution advantage with 4 billion daily active users. The other big theme going into next year for AI is powering data centers. And so last year, really the last 18 months, I think the big bottleneck story has been around chips. It's been around NVIDIA and can we get access to GPUs? Now the bottleneck has really reverted to power. Can we get power to the data centers we're building? All of this infrastructure we're looking into empowering. And so I think companies like a Vistra, a First Solar, some of these derivative plays on power are interesting into next year as data center builders figure out how do we actually get juice to all the GPUs that we're putting in the building.
And you think that the need will be so great they'll move to different sources of power and away from the general?
I do. I think that it will be actually a multifaceted approach. I think we'll see things that are off-grid solutions. So we've seen a lot of this sort of investment in jet turbine engines, for example, through companies like GE Vernova. We've also seen these sort of independent power producer agreements. Companies like Vistra have done deals with the Amazons, the Microsofts of the world. We're bringing back online 3 Mile Island nuclear plant. And so I think we're going to see many different approaches. I do think that solar has been one approach. I mentioned First Solar a little while ago. That's one we really haven't seen take off yet. I actually think that could be more in the playbook next year. And I think First Solar is potentially a great way to play that, trading at a relatively cheap multiple.
All right, Doug, I do have to leave it there. I'm out of time, but thanks for your time.
Thanks, Marilla.
Doug Clinton, founder, CEO, Intelligent Alpha.